Yo, 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 what's happening, my people? Mrs. V, SHG, family. Glad you can join me here today, baby. Let's go. Let me begin by telling you what you can expect in the next few minutes. Convince you of the marvelous universe, how she flows so illicit. Let me begin by telling you what you can expect in the next few minutes. Convince you of the marvelous universe, how she flows so illicit.
Good evening and welcome. This is Tell My Truth and Shame the Devil. It's our first episode, the inaugural episode, and we've got the most magnificent guest on tonight's show, the founder herself, Vienna St Hillaire, who's here to talk about not just the podcast, but her story and the motivation behind it. Good evening, Vienna.
Hello. Thank you.
What's it like being the first guest on a brand new podcast?
Nerve-wracking, exciting, quest-led, I must say. Yeah, I'm good to go.
Fantastic. So, Tell My Truth and Shame the Devil it's the kind of title that makes people curious as to what it is about. So tell us, what exactly is this podcast all about?
Right, so it's a survivor-led podcast and it's dedicated to truth-telling, healing and justice. It's also a space where, I would say it's a sacred space where Black, British and or Caribbean people from that community confront what many would rather keep silent, which is childhood sexual abuse, as well as generational trauma, family dysfunction, and the systems that have failed to protect us, basically. I just want to point out that this podcast is not a victimhood podcast. It's about voice, it's about truth, and it's about reclaiming power, one story at a time.
So not light and comedic topic. It's really a topic that gets to the heart of a problem that is a serious problem, but one that needs to have a spotlight shined on it so things can be fixed.
Yes, definitely. I think what has happened so far is we have been talking about the symptoms, and I do feel that we have to get to the root cause, the source of all of those symptoms. And I believe that starts with your childhood, and specifically childhood trauma.
So who would be the ideal audience for this podcast? Who would be the kind of people that this podcast is a beacon of hope, a spotlight of possible better future?
Well, first and foremost, I must say it would be for survivors like myself who've kept their truth buried far too long. It's for you guys, it's for us. And then experts who've worked on the front lines of healing and justice, and families who want to also break cycles, generational trauma cycles, as well as society that needs to stop. I would say that needs to stop turning away from our most painful truths, and then it's just for anyone who believes that silence is violence. I believe silence is violence, and that storytelling is a revolutionary way or revolutionary act of healing and change and transformation.
Beautiful. So there's a lot of people who can add value and also take value from this podcast, which is fantastic. But what was the motivation behind it? What really was the drive that got you started on putting this podcast together?
Well, I created this podcast because I realized we cannot heal what we refuse to name. That's just point blank, period. How can we like literally teach the next generation or hold systems accountable if we continue to hide behind shame, silence, and fear? So I also believe far too long our communities have prioritized our image over integrity, which is quite shameful, to be honest. And we've actually been taught to keep quiet, you know, not to bring shame upon the family, and all these types of incorrect ways, I would say, of developing us as a community, you know, as individuals, functioning individuals within our community. But I actually believe the real shame lies in protecting perpetrators while silencing survivors. And to back this up, according to a study published by the Black Woman's Blueprint, 80% of Black women report being sexually abused before the ages of 18, and that's like 8 in 10. Which means if I was to get 10 women in a room, 8 of those 10 women would have been survivors of childhood sexual abuse. This isn't rare. This is an epidemic, I believe, and we can't stay quiet for any longer. So that's my motivation behind it.
Powerful motivation, that's for sure. There's something you say on your website, tellshame.com. There is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside you. It's a quote from Maya Angelou, and one that really, I think, all of the listeners to the podcast really need to take to heart, because it will take a lot of courage to talk about these things. And I believe the podcast is going to be shaped in such a way that if you want to be a guest on the show, you have a choice of whether to have your face and your voice masked if you want. This is something which we want to make sure that any guest who comes on can have the safety and security of privacy, and the security around that, which is very, very important. But it is going to take a lot of courage for people to speak about this, because for generations, people have been hiding in the shadows. And there's another saying which is very popular that says, evil prevails when good people do nothing. And that's why it's important that we swallow our pride, and integrity is more important than image. And it'll all come out in the wash. So how does this motivation and your drive to absolutely change so much of what's happened to so many people for so long, how does this tie into your personal story?
Well, it is a reflection of my own truth, actually. So I'm a 3rd generation Caribbean English woman. I am a survivor, a devoted wife, a mother, and also a social entrepreneur. I was raised in the British care system. I'm orphaned too, and also forced to survive through family dysfunction, sexual abuse, and also domestic violence. So for my early years, I would say I remained silent. I should say. I just followed everybody else around me and just got on with life. I thought this was how it was, really. I was groomed into different environments that preyed on that silence. And I found myself in spaces where no child should ever be. And yep, through all of that, I managed to re-educate myself. Knowledge is very, very powerful. So that sort of awoken me and gave me a light bulb moment. And I came out of that environment with 2 degrees, one undergraduate in business management, and the other an MA in neuropsychology. And I was just on a mission from then to transform my life and to make sure that every child that I come into contact with or who is around me never goes through something that I went through. And now I've just find that actually I want all children to be able to have a prosperous childhood. Why not? It's theirs. Why not?
So you're not just a person who's who started a podcast talking about these issues. You're a person who's survived them yourselves.
Yes, I did indeed. Trauma. I survived my trauma, I would say, but every day. I would say every day. It's not a battle, but it's one step at a time. Memories never really leave you, but you're able to know how to deal with them through the support and the healing processes that you've chosen to go through. So mine is mainly with my husband, my children, and also therapy. So and also doing the things that I love to do. So through all of that, day by day, I move forward with flying colors, clearly. So it is working.
This episode is going to be a roadmap, a potential example of how powerful these interviews can be, but at the same time, how safe our guests on the podcast will feel. And to show the future guests and our audience a bit more about what we hope to achieve from this. How do you feel about answering a couple of questions about your own personal experiences and how you've come through those and what you've taken away from them? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, go for it. Shoot. I'm ready.
Okay. Let's go back to your childhood. We're opening a can of worms here. We're going to talk about these things because getting it off our chest, opening it up off our heart is therapeutic, it's healing. But also, I want the audience to know that they aren't alone. So take us back to your childhood. What was your earliest memory of feeling unsafe or silenced as a child?
Okay, so I remember this particular time. My mum used to leave me at this particular person's house because he was babysitting myself. And during this time, he would inspect me and also perform oral on me as well. And I would say that's the earliest memory I can remember of me feeling quite unsafe. I can't quite remember each detail, but I do remember that I remember a scene with me and him in his bedroom. I also remember a scene with me and him in his front room. And I also remember scenes on the stairs and things like that. All oral, no full-on penetration, just all oral, him doing that to me.
But all of these events were happening when you and him were alone together. Did anything progress from there?
Not whilst I was in his house, but this was when I was a bit older now, around 10, I believe, probably 10, maybe 11. And we was going to Jamaica, and the night before he had stayed over with us, and we had shared a bed. So it was my mother on one side, me in the middle, and him on the other side. And during that night, he was trying to insert his penis into me. That I don't really know why my mum didn't. To be honest, Because the bed was moving so much, because I was moving every so often. I don't really understand why she did not even bother to turn around, not once, and sort of just to check to see if I was okay, or to see why the bed was moving, or even just put me in front of her. But yeah, so I had to endure that for the whole night. And then when I came downstairs, he was actually frustrated with me because I was not obviously going to have intercourse with him. So he asked me, and he kept on badgering me, and I kind of got frustrated with him. And in a very angered voice, I said, if you keep on asking me, I'm going to tell my mum. And apparently, my mum had been coming down the stairs and heard that I said that, and asked me, "Tell me what?" And I put down my head in shame, I would say. At the time, I didn't know it was shame. I just put down my head and I sort of said nothing like that, mumbled nothing like that. And she just carried on with her morning, packing the bags, and I just continued what I was doing.
That's horrific. And from what you and I have spoken to in building up to the launch of the podcast, this is not a isolated event. This is something that happens to far too many young girls in the Caribbean community. Moving on past your 10, 11 age group, you've gone to Jamaica, you're back. Tell us a bit more about your teenage years.
Well, I think it gets more intense. My mother my mother had many men around her. She was vulnerable. It's only later I learned that she had a learning difficulty. So she was diagnosed with a learning difficulty. She went to a special school. All of this was actually hidden from her children. So her mother and her siblings and so on and so forth never told us anything like that. So yeah, we just didn't know why she acted the way she acted. And because of this, a lot of predatorial men surrounded her. So during my teenage years, she had influenced us to be a mule, or be an importer of narcotics. And her excuse was she needed money to pay her light bill. So myself and my sister, age 14 and 15, we had to, to be honest, I didn't know there was a choice. Had I known there was a choice, I would have told her no. But I didn't know that there was a choice. I thought I had to do this. I couldn't stay in the house. So we had imported class A drugs. And she then done a couple, and on the second one she done, I think it was karma, but on the second one she was caught and incarcerated. And that's when basically social services came in and swooped all of her 7 children up and sort of placed them all in all different parts of London. That was it, gone. So I didn't really take any possessions, because it was like, pack a bag, that's it, we have to go. So the family home that I've always known from birth till 14, I had to leave. I up to this day, I don't have no pictures of my childhood, nothing really, just the clothes on my back, which obviously don't fit me no more. And so from there, I went into the care system. So I thought, as they, swooped in so quick, I thought, these people were responsible people. It was just worse. So they felt that I was more than capable of looking after myself. So at age 15 and a half, going to 16, they placed me in semi-independence. Later, I learned it is an unregulated housing accommodation for young people. So you got care homes that is regulated, and then you have unregulated semi-independence living, and that's where I was placed. So I was given a support worker who was supposed to sort of, teach me how to grow into a woman and those types of things. But she ended up being good friends with my next perpetrator, who then later became the father of my first child. And I remember vividly I remember another memory. This one I remember like yesterday. So we're all sitting in the studio flat, and I'm trying to cook rice, and the rice burnt and it was a bit mushy. So I was learning. I'm only 15, and these two are laughing at me because in their mind, they're pros at cooking rice. But looking back at it, I'm thinking, this woman, she's not just a professional, she is a big, grown 40-year-old woman, and she's laughing and kikiing with this 29-year-old. Is this, okay, so this was normal. It was quite normal to have all of these adults around me doing whatever they felt to do to me, and no adult had sort of said, "Hey, Vienna, what's going on?" Or even if I said, "No, I love him, he's my boyfriend," call the police or something. But no. So that's what I had to really endure. So I never really had a teenage, a happy, healthy, exploring, partying, nothing like that. I was dealing with this predator and his issues. So that was my time in semi-independence.
So your mum not just didn't protect you, she put you into harm's way. She attracted men into her and her children's lives that were sexual predators. And then you were taken away from that situation, and the very adult, the carer, put in charge of being a mentor and a guide in your teenage years, was doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, basically, yeah. And I would say actually worse, very worse, because no one really is ready for teenage pregnancies or anything like that. And there was many times, because after years later, I got my my social services report. So it was reported in there that Vienna had a boyfriend. Like, no, like, how dare they? Vienna had a boyfriend. You mean Vienna had a predator? So they was well aware that I had some type of sexual relationship with this guy, but still nothing really was done.
So not only was this crime happening, and there was a crime happening under the knowledge of the social care worker, but your mom would put you in these situations with these men, and then now the social care worker was almost manipulating you into them as well, or at least allowing them to happen. And then on top of that, lied on her report to make this seem as if it was a mutually agreed decision.
Yeah, basically. My social worker, she was no better. She had invited me to a barbecue, and it's like she was trying to hook me up with one of her friends, who at this time was a security officer working in Brent Town Hall in Wembley. I shan't name names, but yes. And he was yeah, they're all men, you know. I can't, you know, they're nowhere near in their 20s. They're all in their 30s or 40s, all men. And you know, she was, I can't really remember word for word in what she was saying, but you know, it was more like, you know, he's a good man, he would take care of me, he would look after me, things like that. But and the reasons why I actually didn't even take up her offer, it wasn't actually because I thought he was older than me, because I never had no recollection of, I'm a child, they're an adult. I just thought I'm a big woman, you know. So it was like, I don't like him. That was the reasons why I
Wow.
sort of said no. So yeah.
It's blows my mind. But in the time since then, you know, being a teenager, semi-independent living, you're almost thrust into feeling like you're an adult. You don't understand what's going on, and you don't understand the reality of predator and child sexual assault victim relationship. How old are you when you first realized that that was the actual truth in the situation of your childhood?
I can't remember the age, but I know the year 2020 when I finished my first degree. That's when it just came to me, a shock, really. I really went into a depressive state. I wasn't eating, so I then fell really, really slim. I was hospitalized twice on a drip as well, I do remember. And that was the first awakenings, I would say. After that, I then stabled out, and I sort of just was, you know, reading and educating myself about predators, about trauma, and such things. Yeah. And I realized every single thing that happened to me, it couldn't have been my fault, because I literally, it's not just that. I was actually talking to my sister when this happened, and I realized I couldn't even speak to them, because I remember her saying, yeah, but you knew he had a girlfriend. And I'm thinking, excuse me, I'm a child. I'm a child, you know. So I knew that it's not, you know, I would have to obviously speak to somebody who is able to understand this type of trauma and the situations in a more academic way, as opposed to what was happening back in my environment. And I feel that was the reasons why I blamed myself a lot, and I listened to the perpetrator a lot, because of the enablers as well as the perpetrator stating, you know, I did this and I did that, and if I hadn't have done this, or if I hadn't have done that, they wouldn't have done this to me or that to me. So I had to realize that actually nothing of the sort was my fault, and I actually was the victim here. So I don't have anything to be ashamed of. And that's when I started to take back my power and start talking about it. And from 2012 up until now, I have not stopped.
The things you've said, the enablers, I mean, the word the enabler, the word the perpetrator, the blame that is being put on your shoulder, saying you should have done this or shouldn't have done that, it's tantamount to people who look at a 12-year-old girl who's being raped and say, well, you shouldn't have worn earrings or you shouldn't have worn those clothing, as if the child is ever responsible for the actions of a sexual predator who's a grown adult. And that's one thing that the society as a whole, if that ever is something that a person in society blames a child victim of something like this, especially when you look further up, when you're a victim of grooming, it's also tantamount to Stockholm syndrome. When a person's been kidnapped, they essentially have feelings towards the kidnapper. And in your scenario, and I'm sure in a scenario of thousands of young girls, around the world, not just in the Caribbean community, but everywhere. When you're groomed, you are manipulated into having feelings to these perpetrators, even though no matter which way you look at it, it is a vile, criminal, and unethical and immoral action. And I'm glad you took the time to go through and process it with yourself. But for someone who's listening to Tell My Truth and Shame the Devil, what advice would you give to someone who is back where you were, just finishing your first degree, realizing that they are someone to whom evil acts were forced upon them? What advice and guidance would you give them?
Well, first of all, I wouldn't say, I would say, don't do what I did and act immediately hysterical like I did, because sometimes that could put you in more danger than help you. What I mean is confronting the perpetrators or perpetrator, or confronting the enablers, those things. I would say take a breath. I would say go somewhere very quiet, go somewhere safe that feels safe to you. I would say sit with yourself for at least 20 minutes and just either scream, cry, talk to self, whatever you feel is comfortable, until you calm yourself down. And once you do that, then you think about, where is it that you now want to go from here? What is it that you want to, to achieve going forward? Do you want to remain? Now you know what you know? Do you want to remain in the same environment you've come from? Do you want to help that environment that you've come from? Do you want to change the environment that you've come out from? So all of these things, you should sit with yourself and think about how you're going to move forward. And once you know that, I would say seek out some form of support where you can sort of just relay and speak to somebody who can just listen. So you can relay whatever your plans or whatever you're feeling in your head, and somebody can just listen and give you that ear that is really needed. I wish I had that, to be honest. I have it now, but I wish I had that back then. I literally just spoke to self. And at the time, I didn't really trust what self was saying, but I went along with it anyway, because I didn't have anything else. So I just went along with it. So that's my advice.
I think it's important to understand that when you are facing the realization that something has happened to you outside of your control when you're a vulnerable child, that the actions you take going forward are done in such a way, or you choose the actions for self-preservation, not retaliation or revenge. Because it's very easy when you realize that you have had some vile, evil things done to you, it's very easy or tempting to want to right the wrongs or punish the perpetrators or the enablers. That isn't going to add value to your future. There are healthier ways of approaching it. There's healthier ways of approaching the perpetrators, and there's healthier ways of approaching the enablers for yourself. So the advice I would personally give to the listeners is understand and be mindful of taking a step forward that is with your future safety and health and wellness in mind.
I agree with that as well. Yeah, definitely. The way I, justice, I would say, for the injustices that has happened to survivors, I would say one of the things I did, I would say, is I reported my crime. that was it. It wasn't, when I say justice, it wasn't, yes, I'm going to lock you up. I wasn't really thinking that. It was, I just needed to speak with someone. And as I said, when I first realized I didn't have anyone, so this led me down a path where I was able to share my story. I was able to seek the support. I was able to seek other types of support. Actually, there is a lot of support out there, actually, I did not realize. So, and I was able to meet a good amount of people along the way as well, where I can reach out to now, even though I don't use their organization anymore, but I know that I can still reach out to her and she would answer my emails or my calls. So yeah, if you are thinking, to go down the route of justice, I would say, report it to the police. They welcome. They've always said to me, anything I remember, even if it's 30, 40, 50 years, even though I'm not 50, but even if it's that amount of years, report it. Don't be afraid, because I thought I was, wasting their time. And, the police officer, she was lovely. She's absolutely not, Vienna. Report anything that you feel has happened to you. And yes, you want us to investigate it. Or you want us to take action, report it. And I did. And there's also compensation, as well, survivor compensation, as well as resources and physical support. I had all of them. So yeah.
And it's important to know that there is no statute of limitations for rape or sexual assault in the UK. So even if it's something that happened to you decades ago, feel that it needs to be done, because your silence of not reporting these crimes could allow the perpetrator to act again. And yes, you can't be responsible for another person's actions, but stopping that person's actions is the right thing to do. But let's talk now, going back to the podcast. It's going to be lovely to have other people who've shared similar journeys to you coming on and talking about their journey from darkness into light, from the things that have happened to them to how they've gained control of their life. But aside from survivors of this, who else are we going to have on the podcast?
Besides survivors, I would say, as well as survivors, experts, successful entrepreneurs who's also had childhood trauma, healers as well. I think there's a myriad of ways to heal. And it does, one healing way, it may not resonate with another, with somebody else. So we would be having, so many different ways of healing on our podcast, through religion, through spirituality, through natural law, through eating, socializing, educating oneself, a whole host of things.
Amazing. And now, if someone is listening and they're either a specialist who wants to add value from a perspective of scientific research, coaching, mentoring, guidance, spiritual mentoring, whatever it might be, or a person who's a survivor or might not yet feel like they're a survivor and they want to get guidance from you or some of our guests, or they want to build the courage to be a guest on the show, or just behind the scenes, speak to you. How do people reach out to you?
You don't have to want to be on the podcast to reach out to me. You could just want someone to talk to about, your situation, your traumas, or your healing journey. You can do that at contact us at tellshame.com. You can also, if you do want to be a guest on our podcast, you could also fill out a form online on our website, www.tellshame.com. And you can always WhatsApp me on 07368 118-741. So reach out. Yeah.
So let's close this inaugural first ever episode of Tell My Truth and Shame the Devil with a passionate motivation and sincere message from you to all the listeners.
Well, I would firstly like to say I love you all, and I truly do hope that we stand together in tackling childhood sexual abuse, as well as just childhood abuse in general. I think now is our time. Now is the right time. I feel it in my bones. And I want everyone to shine. Sorry, I want everyone to shine. I want everyone to succeed. I want everyone to have healthy lifestyles going forward. And we can only do that by taking apart what no longer works. And that is silence. So with telling the truth and shaming the devil, I believe we can do that one story at a time. Mwah.
Thank you, Vienna, and thank you to our listeners tonight and our viewers tonight. We look forward to the next episode. Bye. Bye.
Yo, 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 what's happening, my people? Mrs. V, SHG, family. Glad you can join me here today, baby. Let's go. Let me begin by telling you what you can expect in the next few minutes. Convince you of the marvelous universe, how she flows so illicit. Let me begin by telling you what you can expect in the next few minutes. Convince you of the marvelous universe, how she flows so illicit.